Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting expert interview where I interview successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in our industry to help you learn and grow. If you haven't checked out the all-new FlipNerd.com, we now have the most robust and powerful platform in existence for real estate investors, so go to FlipNerd.com and check it out. Today, I'm joined by Corey Taylor. Corey has purchased hundreds of houses, but started between deployments while in the Marines, wearing a few hats there, and became a full-time investor in 2004 after getting out of the Marine Corps. A few years ago, Corey shifted gears when it started to get more competitive and focus on tax sales, and he says now he wishes that he'd done it all along. So he's become an expert in buying properties at tax sale, and today we're going to talk all about that. We kind of realized that there's a number of shows that I've had in the past where we probably should have taken it more from the beginning. So today we're going to kind of have a tax sale 101 show and talk all about what they are and how you could benefit from it, how you could generate leads, and a lot more. Before we get started with Corey, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Corey, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for being on. So it's an interesting topic. I will say that I had somebody on the show about a year ago that talked about tax sales, and it was a widely popular show in terms of number of downloads because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about what tax sales and tax liens and all that stuff even is.
Right.
You probably see that yourself, right?
I do. Yeah, a lot of our students just need the clarity, right? It's a whole new world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk about it today because I like to talk about new opportunities, and I think there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people that listen to this show, they know a little bit about it, but not enough to kind of take action and go do something. So hopefully they'll learn a little bit more today.
Absolutely. It'll be great after today.
Yeah. Hey, before we get started, tell us about your background and how you got into real estate investing and how you made your way into tax sales.
Yeah. Well, I came out of the Naval Academy years ago and took the Marine option. And I was in from 97 to the end of 04. My daughter was born about then, and we loved the area. And frankly, we've been doing pretty well in real estate by then, just doing the night and weekend thing from about 2000 to 2004. My wife were just working as hard as we could. It was just us, no children by then. Nights and weekends, going to events and national RIAs and doing what everybody else is doing right now, trying to get educated as much as you can. But I was pretty thankful that, we were action takers. My wife was real supportive. So, was every course perfect? No. Did it have every little detail? No. But I both know when you just keep taking action, you kind of fill in the gaps yourself and do the best you can and fail forward, right, if you will. And so we just spent a lot of time being uncomfortable and I'm not sure what to do, but let's, the book says, let's go try and kind of found our way. And pretty soon it became you got to get through being bad at something before you're good at it. And my wife and I both had the same kind of mantra. We just kept going through. And so by the time the 2004-ish late in the year rolled around, I was either going to, decide to spend my time in the Marine Corps, my life at that point, about 8 years, either keep going in career or let's get out. And we love the Virginia area. And thankfully, we didn't have to make a financial decision. Some people kind of decide careers or jobs on whether they have to make the money. And by then, we were making more from our real estate investments part-time than what the Marine Corps was even paying us.
Wow, that's great. So
for a while, it was nice to have the dual income, if you will, right? But it was kind of nice. So it's nice to just say, hey, you know what? Finances don't matter. Do we want to stay here and keep doing this? Is the Marine Corps the way to go? What do we want to do? And I've been on a couple of deployments before. Here's my new baby. We love the area, so it was a pretty easy decision to make to say, you know what? That's a great chapter in life, but let's go ahead and take root here and keep doing the real estate thing. And so of course, we kept telling ourselves, if we're doing this part-time, imagine what we could do full. It was really living the dream. It was awesome. It was really awesome to not have to.
Yeah, that's great.
So the people that are going to hear this that think, man, can real estate do that for me? It really can. done the right way, it really can. You just have to be uncomfortable to get good at it, and then find a niche and just latch on, and then you really can get up when you want and have breakfast with your family, and then decide to go to work, and then I got to take Friday off because my kids have something, and all that whole control my own schedule, not in the rat race issue really can happen when real estate's done the right way. So I'm eager to talk about tax sales today because I'm trying to help them do
and
that.
It's funny too because I think we've said this a few times lately on shows recently, but I think a lot of people will hear your story or other people's story and they think it was always easy. Well, you probably didn't have any failures, or not that they subconsciously they're thinking those things. But I think I've started to find myself using the analogy of a professional athlete. It's like
Absolutely
they fail more than they win, and that's why they win.
Yeah.
So, and as a real estate investor, you're not going to fail more than you win, but you're going to fail once in a while, and you have to.
Well, and it's exactly right. And what you also said was, we said, even our own organization, we talk about, are we training correctly? Are we getting the right people? But are we training? Those guys are in the gym. They're on the repetitions. They're catching passes. I mean, they're just, to be professional, you got to be professional, right? Yeah. I mean, to be a professional means, isn't there a great phrase out there somewhere like, professionals practice till they don't never lose or something like that. They practice till they get it right every time versus amateurs kind of practice until they get it right once or something like that. It's just this mentality of how good do I need to be to get success rather than can I be the best at it? Can I be the best every time? It really is a mentality. So this should be treated like anything else. Dollars are important. Your time is very important. But yeah, you're going to have, I mean, we want to talk about failures for a second. We did a lot of things wrong as a downturn was coming. We were positioned improperly. We had a lot of lease options that really shouldn't have taken on the debt we did and shouldn't have signed for things over here. And we didn't have our head up looking at the right market. And we thought the worst case in our market here in Northern Virginia would have been maybe no appreciation. We would never have dreamed of a 40% drop here in pricing. And so we know more now from those downturn issues than we did on the way up. But either way, we had a lot of uncomfortable conversations with sellers that we had no idea what to say and wouldn't get the deal or whatever. But you know what? There's the next one. So it's always about pushing through and practicing.
It's interesting because I started investing in 2008. So you started well before me, but still in the 2000s. And I think that we're in the same boat. And a lot of people that are listening, a lot of people I've had on the show are too. That you've really only been in one so far, really kind of one up cycle, one down cycle, and now we're kind of having another up cycle, right? So it took kind of going through a cycle like that to realize, here's what I'll do next time.
That's exactly.
But you know what I mean? Because you kind of have to go through those things every once in a while to cleanse the bad habits and to be prepared for the next time it happens.
The perfect phrase you just said was cleanse the bad habits too. To realize what you're doing from success isn't necessarily preparing you for the worst. And really, a sound business prepares for both at all times. Yeah, and that's great. And you know what? And people getting counsel like they're getting now to download what other investors have to say that have been ahead of them in those cycles to say, please don't do this or you need to do that is huge, because without the right education, you don't even know what landmines to look for. You don't even know what they look like. And so it's awesome that you guys can provide good insight like this routinely, because it's you just can't do it without it.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the topic of the day. So, tax sales 101. So, why don't you tell us first why you got into tax sales? Because you weren't doing it all along.
I wasn't doing it all along, and I think we were talking about. I think you mentioned competition. Actually, you were saying that, and any professional investor out there these days have several sources of leads coming in, right? Whether it be the signs or whether it be some ads in the paper or some direct mail that goes out. We have those sources. I relied a lot on those. At the time, I had a lot of internet leads as well from just some of the big name web domains you can buy some counties in, right, and send some leads over. But those they weren't really doing the job as much. The broker relationships I used to have, with REO or not, either way, got more and more competitive, because there's always a guy with big money that wants to walk in and sit down with them and offer them something. So if I would get a call on a listing that's about to come out, early on I would be the only guy that gets called, even if listed. I'm at least a day ahead of some people, but then I noticed I was showing up with 3 or 4 guys. Yeah. And I would always perform, always buy. So it wasn't anything I was doing. And I asked them about it, and they said, "No, Corey, it's not you. It's just there's a lot of you, and I need 5 guys looking to make sure I get something sold, not just one guy." And so it was just the competition level got to the point where it seemed like it was becoming more work to get the same deals.
Sure.
And so we're all kind of looking at, wait a second, is it what needs to happen here? Is there a source I'm not tapping into? And so I met somebody, actually a friend of mine now and business partner to Tom, who had been doing some tax sales kind of off and on, wanted to get heavy into it again. I was like, well, let's talk about this. And so we kind of jumped in. but I think I've mentioned this to you before. I'd been ignoring tax sales because I kept hearing the tax lien word. In a minute, I'll explain what I'm talking about there. But I kept hearing tax liens, and I looked at tax liens before earlier in my career, and I thought, okay, well, you go get this lien, and somebody might pay it back or not, and you earn this interest rate, and even though there was numbers like 12, 15, 25%, I'm like, well, that's not. I was largely flipping at the time, right? I want the $50,000 check, so like, I don't really want to tie my money up. I'm flipping. Even on some of these options I was doing, my return on my capital, was more. So I'd ignored it largely because I didn't understand it. I never had somebody explain the whole gamut of tax sales.
Right.
So by the time Tom rolled around, we said, wait, let's look at this thing entirely. Let's see what's going on. And so what I can explain now is kind of this conversation I had given to me, so everybody else on this this call can benefit here. The beauty of tax sales is that half the country does a thing called tax liens, meaning half the country's legislative bodies, right, these counties, it's all done on the county level, by the way, not really the city, sometimes the city level, but mainly the county level. Mm-hmm. And they say, hey, there's really two things they decide. How late are we willing to let somebody go on their property taxes before we take some kind of action? Okay. That's what they have to decide. And then if we take some kind of action, what action is that? That's what every legislature has to figure out, because if you don't let people pay, they would never pay. If there's not some consequence, they would never pay, right? So imagine every county rep's got to decide not only what do we charge for taxes, but how do we collect it and all those things, right? And so they have this dilemma they're always in between how much time they allow to be fair in their mind versus having a reasonable consequence to actually get them collected. And so if anybody's on this call, by the way, that doesn't realize there's such a thing as property taxes, yes. By the way, in this country, a couple hundred years ago, we decided land ownership was not free, and you're going to pay, Uncle Sam, or you're not going to own anything. So it makes me feel like a serf sometimes, having to pay the tax actually on something. But let's political comments aside, there is a thing called property taxes you have to pay. And granted, it's most of the money, the police and the fire and the schools and the road, road maintenance, it goes to valid things for us to live in communities. So, that's really what it's for. But so half the country has this thing called tax liens where they say, look, you know what? I know you're only a year and a half late, but we're going to have this thing called an auction. And we're going to have this investor over here. We're going to sell him this tax amount. Let's say you owe $2,000 in back taxes. So we're going to have this auction, and this investor is going to pay us your tax money. And now when you pay us, you're back your tax money because you went past the line in the sand. You're going to owe a lot of interest now. And when we get that interest, we're going to pay this investor over here because we need the money now. The police guy's got to get paid now, not whenever you feel like paying your taxes. So you've gone as late as you can. Here's an auction. Your house is going to get liened. And this investor over here is going to own this lien. And this lien is, in most states, this lien's in first position, meaning if Bank of America was not escrowing taxes as part of this guy's payment, this lien position is senior to Bank of America, even though it's been recorded up to the fact. So it's a very highly secure lien because the legislature wants to be fair to the property owner, but they know me as an investor showing up, what good is a piece of paper for me to be past the lender? What good is a lien to be past anybody, right? If you're going to sell me taxes, I want to know I'm going to get paid. And so they have to give me incentive as an investor to buy those taxes.
Right. So
the other incentive point is, well, county, you want me to come buy this lien that you want to sell me as an investor. I mean, what rate are you going to pay? I mean, it's great you're giving me some security. I don't really want to deal with, is this guy going to pay? I mean, what's going on? Well, so they have to incentivize with interest rate. So you have some states paying I'm going to say as low as 12%, which sounds ridiculously high to some people, as low as 12, and some are charging 18% for 6 months, so 36% a year in some places. Wow. These large rates, because they've done what they have to do to incentivize investors to come, while also being fair to the property owner. Does it make sense so far?
Yeah.
And so there's a thing called liens. Now
that percentage though, so that percentage, that's what's the basis?
That's it's the basis is what the tax amount owed.
Okay.
Okay. In some states, and I'll describe the differences in a second. There's a couple nuances because every state decides a little bit differently how they're going to charge. And I can explain some of those examples in just a second.
Yeah.
So this auction occurs at whatever interest rate, whatever the tax amount was. And the idea was investors showed up. And now they say, okay, homeowner, we had the auction, but don't worry, right? We had to get our money, but now you've got X years to pay this thing before you actually lose, before the investor can actually take his collateral now that we've given him and harm you in some way. You have X time to pay. Some states stay 1 year. Some states stay 2 years. Some states go as far as 3 years, which is a long time. But all the while, that lien is earning interest.
Yeah, and these are the redemption
It's
period.
called redemption period. Exactly right. So this
Okay.
redemption period means, homeowner, we had to take action. We got our money, but now you're on the clock. So please go call Aunt Martha, call Grandma, ask your neighbor, whatever you got to do. Please go get their tax money. Your federal income tax return rolls around in February. Whatever. Please get the money and pay your property taxes, so we don't have to, allow any foreclosure. Okay.
Well, what happens with future taxes? So let's say that you bought the tax lien on December 31st of 2014, for example. Of course, they're going to owe taxes for 2015 and the years ahead. So if the person's still living in the house, that income stream is still due to the county?
Yes. The taxes are owed every day that property has existence, right?
Right.
And so what you just described is a perfect nuance that when someone's going to decide to say, I want to invest in this state, there's a list of things we say they need to know. And one of those lists of things is, am I required to buy subsequent taxes or not? For instance, Arizona will say, we only want one lien holder on this property. So if you buy the first years of taxes it's owed, and if they're late again next year, you need to buy those two, or you're going to lose the rights to your first one.
Oh, wow.
Okay, whereas Florida says, hey, we don't really care, so you might buy 2013's taxes at that auction, and the next year rolled by, somebody else might buy 14, and by the time 15 comes, the 13 guy can foreclose, or the 14 guy, whoever goes to do the foreclosure needs to pay the other guy.
Right.
So it kind of works out how that works.
Okay.
So there is a process for that, but states handle it differently about multiple lien holders.
Okay. We won't get it. We don't have to dive any deeper there.
So we just described those nuances about paying the lien or whether you have to buy subsequent taxes or not. That's a great one to find out. But in general, there's this first distress point I want to highlight here is the fact that when somebody's house gets liened, just before them getting liened in that auction, they can be communicated with, because now you have somebody. And by the way, I shouldn't say most, a lot of the ones we focus on, they're not living in the property.
Okay.
If we're going to buy
Vacant
liens we think wants to pay us interest, we like them to be occupied. But a strategy I'll cover in a second is we like looking at some that have a deceased owner or an out-of-town owner, things like that. So you can, based on who owns it, you can kind of look at that and say, that's probably going to redeem versus probably not going to redeem based on property type, right?
Okay.
So we like communicating with people before this lien auction because there's some stress going on. There's clearly a problem. They haven't paid the property taxes. So there's some great direct mail strategies prior to the lien auction to get a hold of property owners and discuss what can happen before the sale. Now, when you do that, they may have loans, they may not have loans, they may, whatever. You're dealing with a normal seller, just like any other direct mail you would send. They own the property and you're going to talk to them about it.
Right.
Okay. And then the other distress point is they went to this redemption period. We like communicating with them again close to the end of the redemption period. So they didn't solve it heading into the auction. All this time's gone by. They still haven't solved it now at the end of redemption. And so, those are two distress points right there with the same property that they're not paying. There's something wrong. Can I please keep giving them a message saying, can I please solve your problem? Mm-hmm. Okay.
What's your goal? What's your goal there? Give a couple examples of what your goal is.
My goal there is to
prevent having to foreclose, kind of take the property back.
My goal is to. They clearly don't have any money to pay the taxes to save this property from whoever owns the lien forcing some foreclosure action.
Yeah.
So my goal is to buy the property for whatever I can to make it worthwhile for me, right? And that person who may or may not have equity, or there's different situations, right? So if it's a debt situation, I could just take over that debt with X amount of dollars in taxes paid. Is there no debt? They just couldn't come up with the money at all. So is there some equity I'm willing to pay to buy the property? So I want to buy it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give them tax money or anything. I want to buy it, but I don't know what they have until they call me, right, to see what the situation is.
Right.
Like with most sellers that call you and go, oh, hey, Mike, I want to sell my house. Well, okay, well, yeah, but I owe $250 and it's worth, $190. Well, unless you're in the short sale business, right, you may not choose to work. Right. So depending on the situation, but it's a great chance for lead flow. It's a great chance for lead flow because there's a distress point there and we do that.
Yep.
So now the other half of the country also needs to get their tax money, and we call them deed states because they say, hey, you know what, homeowner, it's been about 3 years and you haven't paid. And so we really need you to pay the taxes. And so there's an auction coming, and there's no lien, there's no redemption period. The auction's the auction. Corey's going to show up, and I'm going to raise paddles, and whatever price compared to the value of your property, you're going to lose it right then and it's over with. So please come pay the tax. So those states they still allowed about 2 or 3 years to go by without paying. They just didn't bother with the lien process up front to get their money. Make sense? So
Yeah.
even the lien states ultimately allow about 3 years before foreclosure action. They both allow about the same amount of time, both kinds of states. One just gets the money early in the form of a lien, whereas the deed states just skip the whole lien process and just the auction's it.
I see.
Make sense? So,
Yep.
but you can see the same pre-auction opportunity arises there in those states because there's an auction coming. They're really going to lose it there, and so communicating with them before that auction is important. And depending on the property type, some just give you the property. They don't want to pay the tax. They don't care. Will you just take it? Yes, I'll take it. Thank you. And then you can decide to pay the tax or not after the fact.
Yeah.
Right? So it's been nice.
So in the lien states, they're auctioning off as little as 1 year's back taxes, or are they letting a few years accumulate?
It's almost always 1 year's of back
I
tax
see.
that auction.
Okay. Yeah, I never knew that. That's great.
Yeah. So you can see that even though there's two different types of states, there's still this idea that the taxes are telling me there's a distress problem, and I'm going to communicate with them up front.
Yep.
Now, and by the way, the counties produce these lists. They produce these lists, so they tell you these are the people they're about to go to auction because they're required to give notice. So the counties are required to give you the list of leads, which is kind of cool. Would you ever think the county government would give you a list of leads, Mike?
No. My taxing authorities have never given me anything other than a bill.
Trouble. They give you trouble, right? So they give you lists of leads. Now, one thing we'll talk about in a few minutes is that a hurdle in tax sales is getting this list they give you, which is pretty cruddy: a name, a legal description, the sale date, a parcel number. It's not like MLS where you get everything, right? Everything you ever know. MLS, it's great. They give you, hey, here's what's coming. Now, you would think they'd be incentivized to give you everything they could, but to buy something, but they don't care. They're minimum required information, right?
Yep.
So we'll talk about a way in a second where we've made software ourselves, right? The automation is beautiful these days, right?
Yeah.
So we have software now that converts the cruddy county list into what we call an investable list: bedroom, bath, square feet. Is it land? Is it house? Is it a sliver by the highway? Or is it a real, piece of property you'd want to buy?
Right.
Because there's all kinds of things not getting paid tax. Is it a common area between apartments, or is it really the apartment building, right? All those things. Right. And so we have software now that can easily convert what used to be very painful to convert this list into something I can now look at and make decisions. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But so now we talked about pre-auction distress. And so if somebody just did that, they're going to get deals. Now there's the auction itself. We don't typically go to the auction itself, only because if anybody does know anything about tax sales, they typically know about the auction, right? So if you had to pick out the most competitive part of tax sales, even though that is relatively less competition than say foreclosures, people want to go bid, and they're either bidding on the lien or they're bidding on the house. Either way, just the typical bidder frenzy. There's a few places in the country. I've heard of a good Tampa auction before. I've heard of a good Vegas auction. I know some guys that just go to the auctions and they find some stuff they're willing to pay it 50 cents on the dollar. Yeah. And pick some good deals out. That's what they do. And so I know auctions are fine. When I tell you a few other strategies, we just don't need to go to the auction. So we largely ignore that, but it is a source of deals. Tax sale auction, show up there. I recommend people showing up and see how they go. Do some evaluation, see what's there, see what you would have paid. Just show up and watch and see if guys would have paid at or above your number. If not, to go back there next time, because these auctions are typically, pretty often. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great tip for folks that are interested, kind of hearing this and say I might be interested in doing that. Yeah. Just find out what some properties are that are coming to auction and put together a number of what you would pay for it, and then go see what happens. Right.
Yeah. If nothing else, you've practiced in the process. Yeah. And you go out and you feel like, I would have paid $75,000 or $150,000, whatever the number is, and somebody paid double you. Well, then okay, that's probably not going to happen for you to go there. Right. It's an auction source, but here's the trick we like the most. People are not really aware that a lot of tax sales are so prevalent. They replenish themselves so frequently that sometimes at these auctions there's not enough money there to buy the good ones. There's just not enough money there. Even though institutions show up sometimes, there's just not enough. So here's what happens. So let's go back to lien auctions for a second. After the auction, there is a subset of liens in many states, not all, but many, where they're good houses, that just didn't get the lien didn't get bought. When I say good, I mean they weren't the best house by the water. They weren't the perfect one in the neighborhood or whatever, right? But they're good houses where it's occupied, it's worth something, okay? And there's a lien there for a couple thousand. Even if the value was 50 on a couple thousand, that's pretty good security on a couple $1,000 lien. If it might be worth 150, I mean, different regions of the country, right, mean different values. So don't, I live in Virginia where everything's $250,000, whereas South Carolina everything's $50,000, right? It's all relative. But the point is, there's this large amount of security, and the guy doesn't want to lose that security for the tax amounts. He's probably going to redeem. It just wasn't the best house on the street in the lien auction, right? So, and the beauty of buying a lien after the fact is that you avoid all the competitive bidding issues. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. In Florida, you don't bid at the auction on the amount of taxes. The taxes are what they are. It's $2,000. They say, hey, Florida pays 18% on a $2,000 tax lien. So the auctioneer stands up, really it's online, but they stands up and says, hey, who is willing to take 18% for this $2,000 tax lien on this $100,000 property? Everybody's hand goes up. Okay, who's willing to take 17.5% interest on the tax lien? Everybody's hands go up, right? They bid this rate down. So the auction is really who's willing to take the least amount of interest on this $2,000. And it might bid down to 5% if it's a waterfront condo worth $200,000 that's owed $3,000 in taxes. The old guy that was disgruntled with his 0.5% CD in the bank thinks he's tickled pink to make 5% on that lien for the next 2 years, right? And so he'll go ahead and take that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's like, why would you do that? What are you doing? But that's perfect for him, right? Well, the liens that fall through the Florida auction that you can buy right after the auction, first come, first serve. As soon as they publish it, a lot of pros like us will jump on the list. And there's lots of liens we can buy. And the trick is you get the maximum rate allowed automatically. So they're 18%. So I can go find some perfectly good liens with just as likelihood or a close likelihood as redemption as this other guy's condo, right? But I can make 18 and he's making 5.
Wow.
So it's called over the counter. So the trick to tax sales is really after the auctions or before the auctions, not during the auction. Okay? That's what they need to understand. And so here's the other beauty of this. We like the liens that come in. Imagine if you're at the lien and you're trying to make interest, Mike, right? And you did some research and you see the ones that are occupied, and you're off my list group of properties are 9-foot grass. You can't even find, the owner looks like they're dead. That just scares you because you don't want to own property, you want to get interest.
Yeah.
Well, another man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
And so we love the ones that come on the OTC list because deceased owner, perfect. 9-foot high graph, perfect. Needs renovation, perfect. I want to buy those liens because my odds of redemption are much lower on those because I want to own them. So I can buy a batch of 17, and when a year rolls around, I can get 8 properties at one time just because they're much more likely to do it. Even the ones that did redeem, I can call the estate and say, hey, I know you don't want to lose it for taxes. I had the lien, you paid it, that's great, but do you want to sell that thing? Oh yeah, we want to sell it. We just didn't want the taxes. What do you want? 5,000 more? Okay, thanks. I still got a steal of a deal, right? So this idea, so what people don't want in the auction, we want after the fact, and we can go ahead and lien that thing right afterward and now wait for our batch. So that's what I kind of meant by digging down. Yeah. We'll dig down, dig the well, put the pump on, and we have batches now. The worst case is we make, in the state we like working in the most, the worst case is we get 12% on our money. Best case is we get a third of the properties, right? So it all depends on how that plays out.
So in the event where somebody is let's say that somebody is deceased and the house is vacant, and you buy the lien. Now let's say that, so you pretty much have to wait a year in order to take the house back. You wait
whatever the redemption period is. You would wait year, 2 years, whatever it might be. You're going to wait that period of time.
So even if you know it's already vacant, that house may just have to sit there and wait.
It has to sit there. Yeah, and we'll talk about some ways in a second where you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
But we call this priming the pump.
Okay.
So the marketing somebody's doing to the distressed up front will probably provide some deals you can buy right now because you can write contracts with sellers and buy those right now.
Yeah.
But I always tell people to get started on the lien process because you're going to be really happy a year or two down the road when 5 properties fall out in your lap because you did the work 2 years before then because you wanted those properties, and pretty soon they're coming out every year because you primed your pump. You got the process started of these liens becoming deeds, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's an awesome one. And then there is a market called secondary liens, right, where companies have bought these liens and they are almost to the end of the redemption period, and the sellers of those liens would like to sell for some discount. So they might have earned 30% by now. They just want 15 of the percent, so you can buy them now. And if the worst case is you get 50% back on your money if it redeems, the best case is you own the property. But they've already aged a while, so you're going to know a lot sooner whether you're getting paid or not, or whether you're going to own it or not. It's just one more source of liens. But so it's almost like an over-the-counter list that's been aged already, and you can buy some of those and get some deals there too.
Okay.
Even after some of these companies foreclose on them, tax foreclosures, they don't want them all. Hey, there's some tax foreclosures for sale from some of these companies too. So there's just these constant little streams of before the auction motivation, during the auction some opportunity, post auction some motivation. There's just or what you can buy and get. There's properties falling out everywhere.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating.
The issue is just getting through the list to get the junk out as soon as possible and get the real ones you want to the top as soon as possible, and that's software. And so that's how that works to get the process done. And people need to get. This is the last thing I want to talk about this, just the strategy wise, because it's all about timing. When I tell you before the auction, your natural question is, well, when's the auction? Well, when is it in that state? When is it for your county? Is it May? Is it November? Is it they're all over? It depends, right? So for somebody to say, oh, I want to do this in my backyard, okay, your backyard probably has it happen once a year. Could you mail a couple months before and a couple months after? Maybe, but that means about 3 or 4 months of your year you can deal in your backyard if it's a good place to be. But I tell people, if you're not the most qualified person to be looking at a house anyway, what difference does it make if it's across town or 3 states over?
Right.
You're still trying to hire the proper experts that you can believe and trust to give you the right information. Experts that expose themselves to social media usually, which is a great platform you guys have to do that. Mm-hmm. And so the right guy needs to give you. So what does it matter if it's your backyard? Be in the right market. So find when your market can do the strategies. Find when the other market you like does the strategies, and have places to work all year long. So as I was telling you earlier, we've got 4 or 5 spots that keep us busy all year long because their auctions are throughout the year. And so we've always got a place where we're buying some liens, sending some mail, getting some calls, and buying in different locations in the country because they're the right markets to be in, right? Job growth, good conservative governorship, that kind of stuff. We know that economically they're growing. Right, we want to be there. Not that we need the appreciation, but it's kind of nice to be in a flat or increasing marketing versus a decreasing market, right? And so I like people to I would like to keep getting our students out of their comfort zone of being 30 miles away when they really need to invest in a great big country that needs to provide lots of good opportunity. So to summarize these strategies that are awesome that we employ every day, it's you're sending mail to people motivated because they have a tax problem coming with the lien auction, and you're mailing people that have a tax problem coming with this deed auction, or you can go to the auction itself, or you're investing in these leftover liens or leftover deeds. And by leftover, they're not all junk like some people would have you believe. We buy a lot there, amazing properties, and buy those. And there's this idea of the secondary market, meaning resellers of these liens. And so between all those strategies, doing it in multiple places in the market in the United States, multiple markets in the United States, it's all the deal flow we would ever want. So to go back to the original kind of question, what kind of got us into it when we discovered there's all kinds of ways before, during, and after to keep getting lead flow from the tax sale process. There really just wasn't need or time or money to go do other marketing. There just wasn't necessary, because when the county hands you the list and software lets you press some buttons to get the data, there's really not a whole lot of marketing being paid for. So I tell people, if you don't have a lot of money, the signs are great and advertising is great. The more you do those, the more leads you will get. And we all know leads is the business, right? Getting leads. So I'm not telling people not to do that. I just tell people that maybe starting out with limited capital to market, you don't have to have a $5,000 a month marketing budget to begin buying real estate. If you immerse yourself in the tax sale markets that provide you leads, you just got to know how to sort through them.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is even for me, I definitely have learned a number of things here today. I've never done a tax sale, so I'm far from an expert at that at all. But is that how many different ways there are to make money? I think most people, the general probably belief is going to the auction part and not really thinking about the pre-auction, the fact that it gets on a radar and they can learn about that, or all the stuff that happens afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it was. I think I told you before. I wish I'd done it from the very beginning. So those listening now, if I had to start all over again and to have certainty of lead flow, I would have started in this and made some money, and then used whatever portion of my capital I wanted to increase my advertising dollars and get some other leads just to have more.
Yeah.
But so far, even as a professional in this business, we've gotten really all we wanted by buying batches of them in different parts of the country and having
Yeah.
properties fall out. We even just, if we got time, if we have 2 minutes, I can cover one more quick.
Sure.
example.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. What two quick examples? Just things you get into that anything can happen. I'll cover an okay one and then a great one. An okay one recently was bought a lien a year ago. It kind of went through, got the deed, an acre right on the lake, and had some kind of rundown sort of structure on it. And the total cost of this lien was $1,600. We went to the county and said, "County, there's this structure there. What are you going to do about that? It's kind of across the line." And they're like, "Well, we'll tear it down, but we'll bill both property owners, you and the other guy, to have that torn down at whatever the county discount rate was, plus they augmented." So it was like another $2,000 to have that structure taken off. So now it's a buildable, great lot on the lake. Now we're into about $3,500. The assessed value of that lot was $85,000.
Wow.
And so even if we discounted by half, I'm okay making 40 on my 3,500.
Yeah.
That one is just one example that came out. And another example, just being in the list. I tell people that the tax sales are about being in the list, meaning get as many lists as you can, review them for what's there, make decisions as fast as you can. We noticed a lot of partial numbers of land, which normally we would have kind of ignored because we're not really big land buyers.
Right.
You can be, but we're just not. And but we noticed a bunch of sequential partial numbers. And we thought, that's kind of odd. Is that in a neighborhood? Like, what is that? So we started pulling the string a little bit more, and we discovered that, back in '75, some neighborhood was approved, 55 lots in this subdivision. It was an approved subdivision that just never decided to get built. And so we're like, well, I wonder if that. And it was about $25,000 in taxes owed. And we called we got a hold of the owner who wasn't going to redeem, but we weren't sure, so we went to get a hold of her. And she was willing to have some discussion. I went to the county and said, "Hey, county, are you going to honor all these agreements about this being a real subdivision?" Because there were some were septic, some was city, all of it was city water, by the way. Some of it was city sewer, half of it was septic. And we were like, "Well, are you going to honor?" And the first thing they said was, "Well, you need to resubmit all that because the rules are different now." And we're like, "Oh, come on, you did it all." And ironically, they were like, "Okay, fine, we'll honor all those agreements." Well, the agreements were leaving it all platted as is, septic systems as is, the city water as it was, sewer. They even kept an agreement that was bringing the road, the blacktop, as far as each house gets built around this big circle, like a big racetrack, like a big oval, right?
Wow.
So even the road is all in there. So we went to her and said, "Hey, what can we work out?" And the taxes were $25,000. She took an additional $25,000. So for $50,000, we were into 55 platted, approved, city sewer, city water, part septic, subdivision.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? And so that was a real find. It took some work, but it was just being in the list. And so that's going to be, by the time we're going to go ahead and build those out ourselves, because my partner's a builder, so we're going to build those out. And so that's going to be about a 1.5 net for us, said and done. We want to sell them this year price, not making it a 3-year kind of deal. We want to get them done. Yeah. And so we went and finished some of the development, got some clearing done, etc. And so that's on a tax sale list.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. So those come around every day. No, but I tell people, once you're in the business, right, you just never know what comes along, and all these things can be in tax sale lists.
Yeah. Now we talk about it a lot. We've said it a few times recently, even, is that at the end of the day, most of us people that I interview on the show, like you, we're in the opportunity business.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of folks get hung up on, this is my niche, this is exactly what I do. But once you realize that you have to be open-minded to opportunities, then the whole world kind of opens up to you. So,
well, and practice. Let's say practice. Right? Practice to see them.
Yeah.
Getting help to see them. Practice to see them, and the more you see, the more you can take advantage of. That's right.
Yeah. Great. Corey, well, thanks for sharing your information. I feel like this is a topic we could probably talk about for several shows. So maybe we have to have you.
Absolutely.
Maybe we have to have you back another time.
I'd
my
love
friend.
to do it. Yeah.
So tell us if folks want to learn more about. I know you teach others how to do this. Where should they go if they want to learn more about
We
what
do.
you do?
There's a website, right? The best site to go to is Cash Flow Commanders with an S. Cash Flow Commanders. Tom and I both have a military background, so that's kind of what we go with. Cashflowcommanders.com is a great way to get involved with us. We say that way because we love to hold. I know I'm on a Flip Nerd show, but we love the hold stuff, right? We love the tax advantages of holding. We love passive income.
Yeah.
We're all about the rich dad idea of out of the rat race on things. You can roll out of bed and still get paid, right? Real estate should be fun, and flipping is awesome. But flip because you love to and want to, not because you have to, right? Let's have some holds. And I know you mentioned that before too, getting some holds. So we love the idea of getting that cash flow and using these tax sale properties to actually build your wealth, so you can stop working and just do real estate if you want to, because it's fun.
Yep, that's fantastic. Yeah, and are some misnomers with our name of Flip Nerd. I mean, I would say generally speaking, it's a universal term for all that is real estate investing. We celebrate all real estate investing. So
definition.
Awesome. Well, we'll add the website you just provided down below the video for those that want to check it out. Cashflowcommanders.com. And Corey, thanks so much for being here today. Definitely appreciate your time and appreciate you educating us a little bit on tax sales.
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you again.
Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry. So get on over to FlipNerd.com.